Welcome to another Apollo Papyrus podcast episode. I am Aaron Apollo Camp. For this episode, my interview guest is a clinical hypnotherapist, a human consciousness guide, and the author of the nonfiction book Affirming and Focusing on Living a Better Life. Her name is Kerie Logan, also known as Angela Myer, and my interview with Kerie will follow the note-taking sounds. Kerie Logan, welcome to the Apollo Papyrus podcast.
Thank you for having me, Aaron.
You're a clinical hypnotherapist, and your practice is called Master the Upper Rooms. What services does your practice provide, and what was the inspiration for the name of your practice?
That's a very good question. So, Master the Upper Rooms is all about human consciousness. And I teach people, and anyone can do this. I mean, if you're a manager, HR, you got children, you deal with toxic people, you go to the website, you go to free stuff, you look up free images, and it will explain 3D human consciousness. And in that range is anger, envy, jealousy, egotistical pride. There is shame, there is hopelessness, all these lower thought patterns that are very destructive to us as human beings and also the planet, because, that's where people want to have war and fight and argue. And when you get to 4D human consciousness, that's where you have courage and you have neutrality. You're grounded, balanced, and centered. You can have wisdom and understanding, compassion and forgiveness, patience. So I tell everyone, all the tools you need exist in 4D human consciousness. And so what I really do is I help people get unstuck, to shift their perspective and to live a better life instead of just existing. And then on the terms of the hypnotherapist aspect, I've been doing that for over 20 years. I actually just got notification last week that instead of 14 consecutive years is the best, now I'm 15 consecutive years. So I must be doing something right, Aaron.
Okay. My next question is about your nonfiction book, Affirming and Focusing on a Living... let me correct myself. Affirming and Focusing on Living a Better Life. Without spoiling too much of that book, what is it about?
It teaches you about the power of our thoughts, the power of our emotions, and how to manifest what your heart desires, and also explains how we get stuck in our ego and we get very demanding. We get really rigid. We expect it a certain way. I even broke down how to do this work for someone that is analytical. And so I used to, in 2012, for 2 years, I taught a law of attraction class. And 1 year I got tired of teaching it and I said, I want to do it. And I did a mastermind class for a whole year. And in a 10-month period, I manifested over 22 things my heart desired. And I woke up one day and was told by Spirit, you're going to write this book, and here's the table of contents, and go sit in front of your computer and start typing. And so that's what I did. I literally channeled all this amazing wisdom from up above and wrote that book. It's got a 5-star rating on Amazon, and everyone has said it's the best manifesting book they've ever read. So that's that in a nutshell.
Your book was published back in 2012, which is 13 years ago.
Yeah.
Why is it still relevant to read today?
We are manifestors. We do create our own reality, whether we like that truth or not. And sometimes people want to manifest more money. Sometimes people want to manifest a partner. Some people want to manifest better health. And I tell you what keeps you stuck or blocked from having that. And a lot of it has to do with the same thing of human consciousness, is our thoughts and emotions do have power. I mean, there's been books written, like when I was in high school, reading a book called Your Word is Your Wand, and all about, how we have so much more potential than we even know possible.
Kerie Logan designed the artwork for your book. Are you related to Kerie, and is the artwork for the book limited to the cover, or is there artwork inside the book as well?
The Katrina is my daughter, and she loves to do digital art. So she did create the cover for the book. And I told her this is the image that I see as someone with their arms out wide, and they are just one with everything. Like life is beautiful, life has meaning and purpose. And now you see those images everywhere. I mean, literally, I see them on banners, I see them on business cards. And so it's really empowering a person. And there is only one, I think, image inside the book, and that's an image that a client wrote where she said before she met me, her workload was like always stacked. She had the picture of a woman's face and all these books stacked on her head. And she said, after working with me and reading that book, now the books are below the head and the person's smiling on top. So she learned a lot of great techniques and how to shift the way she looks at her life and her workload.
What motivated you to write a nonfiction book?
Well, it was a calling. I don't know if you know what a calling is, but at least 66% of the people on this planet do believe they've had a calling from our Creator. And like I said, I woke up and I was told, you're going to write this book, and here you go. And what was so fascinating about it, Aaron, is I had a social worker friend that worked at UC Davis Medical Center. I sent her the first 4 chapters. She read it and she said, how do you know this? You're not a psychiatrist or a psychologist. You're not even a counselor, but everything you wrote about is in my continued education for a social worker. How did you do that? And I said, I channeled it. I listened, I typed, and I just put it in there. And so she was very fascinated about all the divine guidance, wisdom that was just flowing through me and was put in that book.
Is affirming and focusing on living a better life independently, traditionally, or hybrid published? And what was it like for you to get a book published in 2012?
Actually, I independently published it. I did. And it felt great to really get it published. And for quite a while, I was actually giving it out for free because the information was so important and I felt necessary for people to listen to. It's kind of like when you're called to do something, Aaron, you kind of do it.
Do you plan on, or are you considering writing more books? And if so, what are some ideas you have for books you will or may write?
Well, this might be a shocker to you, Aaron, and to your listeners. I wrote the book, The Undetected Narcissist, and my pen name is Angela Myer. And I wrote that book because when I was recovering from narcissistic abuse, I couldn't find one book out there that someone actually told their story. And so I was guided, like before, to write this book, but write it coming from a perspective of compassion, understanding, and wisdom, and even forgiveness. Because the truth is, I was lying in bed one night and I was told, do you know you humans create narcissistic people? And I was like, what? And I was guided to go look it up online, and it's true. We actually do. They are created by 3 different parenting styles, which is authoritarian, neglectful, and an absent parent. And then they're created out of bullying, child abuse, and trauma. And so that book actually has done very well to where when I went out and did speaking engagements, and that was self-published too, I had narcissist people come up to me and actually thanked me for writing that book and asked for my advice because I'm a safe space. Because if I was coming from hate, anger, and fear, they're not going to come up to me. And a lot of people get traumatized and they can become temporarily narcissistic because you're in your survival brain. You're just trying to get through one day at a time. And it's really hard. And the way that I structured the book and was guided to write it was each beginning chapter breaks down what is gaslighting, what's stonewalling, what's baiting and projecting, all the key words, because I was in the dark and I didn't know. I didn't know. And I needed that education to help me. And now what I do is I use that wisdom to help other people all over the globe.
What does it mean for someone to be trauma informed, and why should everyone be trauma informed?
Well, when you see a homeless person on the streets, that's trauma. That's literally trauma right there in your face. When you see someone acting weird and crazy and stuff, that could be their trauma. And when we are not trauma informed, we make judgments and we can be rather cruel and rather harsh. But when you are trauma informed, you can realize that that's the person's trauma. You see someone that is a clutter person, you see someone that's a hoarder. All of that is trauma. And when you are trauma informed, you can be more gentle and kind and patient and cooperative to the person instead of looking at them like they're crazy or you get afraid of them because they're not going to hurt you. They're literally, suffering. So more people become trauma informed, we can better support a person. So I'm going to give you a perfect example, Aaron, that a lot of people don't realize this one. It's called friends because there's fight, flight, flop, or freeze. Those are some trauma responses. But the friends one is where you meet a person and they tell you their whole story, their whole life story. And we think they're crazy, like, oh my gosh, they're oversharing so much information. This is overwhelming. That's their trauma speaking because inside they are begging for help. They want to know why this happened to me. Why did I get abused? Why did, no one listen to me? It's literally a cry for help. And when you recognize that in another person, you can have more sympathy, you can have more compassion, and you won't immediately label them as being crazy.
What is it like to be spiritually awakened and channel higher vibrational beings?
I love it. It can be exhausting and exhilarating, especially if you get a big download. But I'll tell you this, I use it with all my clients. It doesn't matter where you live. I get messages all the time for certain people in my life, and they're always spot on. And that's the real nice thing is when people come to me, they're usually afraid to share sometimes their deepest, darkest secrets because of the shame and the guilt and the judgment. They don't want that from somebody. But when you are that safe space and that person comes to you and they share their pain story, I look at it as it's just information. It does not define you. And a lot of times, like a good example, I worked this Sunday, and in 2 minutes, the woman that was sitting in front of me, I looked at her and I said, "You're temporarily narcissistic." And she said, "Yes, I am, because I put off that F you vibe to everybody. I want everyone to leave me alone." And she went deep into her trauma story and then was felt so comfortable. She showed me pictures of her bedroom full of clutter and this and that. She's like, "I'm so unhappy and I've built all these walls around my life." And that's so freeing and liberating, Aaron, to sit with someone that really gets you, sees you, hears you, understands your pain, and is there to support you. So I use it all the time.
One final question for this interview. You host the Master the Upper Rooms podcast. What can listeners expect from a typical episode of your podcast?
Well, in the first season of that, I did a good majority of interviews. I kind of tried to describe what Master the Upper Rooms is, and and you can have that content, but there's a lot better content on the other podcast, which is the Undetected Narcissist. I'm on season 4 right now, and some of the topics are the walls we build and how to dismantle them, how to forgive the unforgivable. Healing happens in layers. I talk about shadow work. I'm going to talk about, the clutter. I talk about why people cheat. And even if you're not a cheater, when you listen to that podcast, you can see maybe some parts of yourself, like, am I emotionally unavailable? Am I into the push and pull, hot and cold? Do I need constant attention all the time because I feel insecure? So that one is really more designed to, and I incorporate the human consciousness in there. I really try to incorporate it without the shame, without the, embarrassment or humiliation. And sometimes I get really real and honest and say, yeah, I was stuck in that place before, because I'm not perfect. Nobody is. So it's designed to educate, to heal, and to have people be a little bit more kinder to ourselves because we live in a world where we want instant healing, instant gratification, and healing doesn't happen like that. It happens in layers. When you look at the iceberg, you only see the 10% on the top, but 90% is down below. So when we start healing, you're spiraling up. You're spiraling out of the shame, out of the anger, out of the hatred, into more compassion, into more understanding. And and it's fabulous. And you think about it like weight loss. Or when you lose weight, your body has to plateau at some point and adjust to everything before it can start losing weight again. And so that's just an example of, two different podcasts that I have, the Master the Upper Rooms and the Undetected Narcissist.
Kerie, thank you for appearing on the Apollo Papyrus podcast. You were a wonderful guest to interview.
Thank you, Aaron. And I hope you and your listeners all have a fabulous day and enjoy the weather outside. Hopefully it's sunny where you are.
Whether you know her as Kerie Logan or Angela Myer, I hope you enjoyed listening to the interview. This is Aaron Apollo Camp reminding y'all to find your writing and reading purpose. Bye for now. This podcast episode is intended for the private listening of our audience. Any reuse or retransmission of this podcast episode without the express written consent of the podcast host is prohibited except under fair use guidelines. Royalty-free music and sound effects obtained from https://www.zapsplat.com.